Hello, today we're going to talk about a specialty gear set that we see in automatic transmissions used all the time. And that is a planetary gear set. We'll assemble it here in just a second. We talk about the different parts. But let's think about a manual transmission versus an automatic transmission. In a manual transmission, here we have different gear sets running side by side. We have gears that are splined together this way. So we have two different shafts running through the manual transmission. That makes the overall transmission pretty bulky and pretty big. But in an automatic transmission, all our gear sets are in line with each other. There is an input shaft and an output shaft. There is no counter shaft like we see in a manual transmission. And the way we do that and still get different gear ratios without having to spline two gears together side by side is with planetary gear sets. So what we have here is the parts that make up a planetary gear set. This is a very simple planetary gear set here. There's other types. There's compound types such as a Simpson planetary gear set and a Ravenel gear set. We'll talk about those later. This video is just about the basic planetary gear set. And a planetary gear set is made up of three components. What we have is a sun gear, a ring gear, or an annulus gear. The teeth are on the inside of this gear. And then we have our planet carrier, or our planet gears. And if you see the way these are symboled, the name will make a lot of sense. If, just like in our solar system, the sun is at the center of our solar system. So if these little gears here in the planet carrier, sometimes called pinion gears, are our planets, what goes in the middle? Well, that would be our sun. So our sun is going to spline into the middle of our planet carrier, and it's going to connect with the planet gears here. And you see, when I turn the sun, all these planet gears turn, and they're held together with this component that we call the carrier. And this whole assembly will slide down the middle of our ring gear. Let me fidget with it. There we go. So what we have here now is our planet carrier with our planet gears connected to our outer ring gear with a sun in the middle. And what this allows us to do is to get different gear ratios without having to have separate gear sets all splined side by side. So depending, well, and the way let's back up. So a little bit, the way we get our different gear ratios in a planetary gear set is there's always going to be an input, a held component, and an output. So just like in another gear set where you have your drive gear and a driven gear, the same thing in a planetary gear set. But one other component is we have to hold one of the other components. So if you look, right now I'm holding the ring gear. Now if I turn the sun gear, so our sun gear is going to be our drive gear. You see the planetary gear set turns. So that would mean our planet carrier here is our output. So if you see this pipe here, this planet carrier is welded to this pipe. So if we hold the ring gear, I'm going to hold the ring gear, turn the sun gear, you see the pipe and the planet carrier are turning. So that would be our output. Sorry, excuse me. So in an automatic transmission, we would hold this ring gear assembly and drive the sun gear, and the output would give us a gear ratio. Now let's say we wanted to get a few more gear ratios out of this same gear setup. Well, all we have to do is hold a different component. So now let's say we hold the sun gear and we use the ring gear as the input. Now you see the carrier again is still turning. If you look at the white marks, you can see that the output is going to be, the ring gear is turning faster than the planet carrier. Now let's hold the planet carrier and turn the ring gear. Now you notice we get a reverse action here. The sun gear is turning the opposite direction of my input or my ring gear. So these different combinations of gears and holding and turning give us the different gear ratios in an automatic transmission. Now, inside an automatic transmission, you may have multiple sets of these planet gears that make up the different gears in the transmission. Like on modern day transmissions with as many as 10 speeds, you're going to have multiple sets of planetary gears. Now, also we can get more ratios out of this if we use those compound gear sets that I was talking about, the Raveno and the Simpson, which we'll get to later. But in a simple planetary gear set, this is how the different gear ratios are achieved. So let's talk about those ratios. How can we figure that gear ratio in a planetary gear set? When we talked about gear ratios in the regular like helical cut gears or straight cut gears, we counted teeth, right? And we would divide the amount of teeth on the driven gear by the amount of teeth on the drive gear, and that would give us our gear ratio. Well, we can do the same thing in a planetary gear set. We just have to always remember which component are we holding and which one's the input and which one's the output. So I went ahead beforehand and I counted the teeth on this sun gear here, and I found out it had 42 teeth. Then I counted the teeth on the ring gear. I found out we had 76 teeth. Now the planet carrier, we don't have to sit here and count all these little teeth on each planet. What we can do is just add the teeth of the sun and the ring, and that will give us how many teeth are in the planet carrier. So if we have 42 teeth in our sun, 76 teeth on the ring, that gives us 118 teeth in our planet carrier setup. So let's start doing some ratios. So if we use the sun gear as the input and we hold the ring gear, that would make our planet carrier our driven gear. So if you see here, I'm turning the sun gear. You can look at these white marks here, and you notice that not the best gears here, that the sun is turning more than the carrier. So let's bring them back together. Pretty close there. So let's turn the sun gear and see how many times the carrier turns. So there's one revolution of the sun gear, and we didn't get quite halfway around on the planet carrier. So we could sit here and we could turn this again. So that's 1, 2, and almost 3 turns of the sun gear before we got a complete rotation out of that planet carrier. Well, that would put us at just under a 3-to-1 gear ratio. Well, if we do the math and we take our 118 teeth on our driven planet carrier, divide it by the 42 teeth on our sun gear, that gives us a 2.8-to-1 gear ratio. So there we confirmed our counting of the turning gears with the math. The math will always be more accurate. You'll get a more precise gear ratio, but we got a pretty good idea just by counting the amount of turns that we got on the sun gear versus the planet carrier. So let's try it again. Let's hold the planet carrier and let's start over. Let's line everything back up. So now let's hold the planet carrier. Remember, that's welded to this metal pipe. So I'm going to hold the pipe back here, and we're going to turn the sun gear, and let's count the ring gear. So here, let's do, well, that's giving us reverse, but let's still count the ratio. So that's 1, 2, and we're pretty close there. So that's just over, let's see. Let's do a different one since that's reversed. Let's try, let's do the, let's do the sun as the driven gear and the planet carrier as the drive gear. So let's hold the ring and let's turn the metal pipe. So let's get these gears. All right, let's go. Now see, the sun gear's already come back around. So we haven't even gone halfway around on the planet carrier, and the sun gear's already come around. So that's 1 turn for the sun. That's 2 for the sun. So almost 2 3/4 turns for the suns for 1 turn of the carrier. So we no longer have a gear reduction here. Now we have an overdrive, because our input made 1 turnaround and our output made multiple turns. So if we do the math there, we have a 0.35 ratio. So that is an overdriven gear because it's smaller than 1. So we can get gear reduction, overdrive, and reverse all with a planetary gear set. So let's just review real quick the parts. We have the sun gear, the planet gears and the planet carrier, and a ring gear. And those are the parts and how they work together to make gear ratios in a planetary gear set. Hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.